And you gotta like the driveway at Evergreen. They made it like an aircraft runway, painted it up. See this? This is a solid rocket booster from a Titan IV rocket, and it's all stripped down. It's pretty interesting to look at. It looks used. You can see the electronic telemetry, electronic controls went up the side there. Actually sending guidance down to, well, the guidance ring was always at the top, and the I don't know which is the top of the bottom. I have to take a really strong look at it. And that one over there looks like it hasn't been used. But this one here looks like it has been used. And in the corner here, I'm quite curious. Which one this is. It looks like it just got put there. But this museum has the actual first built F-101 Voodoo. And I wonder if this is it. I think it is. Who doesn't want their own personal T-28? They sure had a lot of these things up for sale a while back. But they cost a lot of money to operate. The Evergreen Water Park has a 747 on the roof. And you can see the glass center section. They cut open the middle of it, and that's the top of the water slides. So I think there's an elevator that goes up there and staircase. You see that glass frame sticking out just behind the wing? That is a water park. I can see a helicopter hanging in there. An Evergreen helicopter, no less. Wings and Waves Water Park. 747 on the roof. Gotta like that. F-106 Delta Dart. You know what? They actually made a twin seat version of this. And that just looks so cool from there. They made a twin seater of this, and they actually just fattened up the cockpit. It looks really weird. But they made a trainer version of this. I gotta take a photo of that. That's pretty cool. Looks fast, eh? And here's an F-14 Tomcat. Wow, was that an expensive airplane. Just a ton of engineering in it. And it basically got replaced by the F-18. Well, the Super Hornet, not the first one. And look at the new way that they do the glass for the pilot to look out. He gets one nice beautiful flat piece in front of him, and it would be heated. Very, very heated. And next to it is a MiG-29, the arch enemy. The MiG is so much smaller. I am switching cameras. That other one seems to be faulty. This is pretty crazy. 1912, 10 years after the Wright Flyer, and they've got a V8 on a little airplane. Seems pretty crazy to me. And here's a flight control system. I guess this is the ailerons over here. Oh wow, this is Curtis. It says Curtis on the back. Nice view of the Wright Flyer. An awful lot of replicas have been made of this aircraft. The real one is sitting in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian Institution. See the engine right next to him there. And we're at Evergreen Air and Space Museum in McMinnville, Oregon. Here's an old Jenny showing her. Well, there's that V8 they came up with. 1917. Considered obsolete by 1917. Things were happening pretty fast back then. And this is the Spirit of St. Louis. This is a replica of the real deal. The real deal is sitting in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. This aircraft was built in Washington State in 2011. It's an exact replica of the Spirit of St. Louis. The original was built in 1927 in San Diego, California, and it was an experimental aircraft. It was built based on a plane that was used to fly mail, contracts for the U.S. mail. At the time, there was a $25,000 reward for the first person who could fly solo from New York to Paris, and a whole bunch of people went after it. A few people died doing it. On the day that Lindbergh took off, there were two other pilots with their aircraft ready to go, but they were waiting for better weather. Lindbergh took off when it was a little marginal early in the morning, and he was first. He did it. Very unusual wheels. Got these covers for aerodynamics of some kind. I don't see any brakes. I don't see any brake lines. But this aircraft is meticulously built. She's perfect. Directly behind the engine is actually a vertical tank, and it's the oil tank of the engine, and it's huge. And then behind it, that's all a fuel tank. From, I guess, that oil tank, you can see there's pictures of it somewhere, but the oil tank's only a piece of this, and then from there all the way back to the window is fuel. This aircraft carried 450 gallons of fuel, and it still had the wing tanks that were, if you look at the model, you can see one of the wing tanks is exposed, and that was the wing, and the tail and everything was pretty much existed in the mail carrying aircraft they already had. I wonder what that little thing on the back of it did. Coolest thing ever. I wonder what that little windy thing is on the back top of the fuselage. She's gorgeous. Beautiful model sitting right here. Shows you how the aircraft was built. The wings were entirely wood with a fabric covering, and the fuselage was welded steel tubing. And the fabric, you can see it quite nicely right now with the sun reflecting on it. Fabric covered wings. This airplane's really new. I don't think it's ever flown. I wonder what that covering is. Some kind of a covering. Painted. And this aircraft was designed and built in 2 months flat. Oh, that's a beautiful shot right there. I gotta take out my cell phone and get a shot. Built in San Diego, California. Great shot of the model here. That's a really big model. I mean, it's a 10-foot wingspan. I don't think it flies. I wonder if he had the model first and he said, hey, I want the real thing. And here is the stuff about this airplane right here. It's built by Century Aviation of Wenatchee, Washington State, 2011. There's quite a few copies of this aircraft out there. At least 10 or 12 have been built. The first one was built 45 days after the famous flight in 1927. A Japanese newspaper company paid Ryan to build another one for them, and they shipped it to Japan, where it went on tour there. Quite a famous event. There's no forward-looking window. The pilot had that little parachute that's sticking out the top corner of the window there. Not a parachute. The pilot had that little periscope, which is sticking in the out position right now. You can see the little mirror in there. That's all he had to look forward. But he also said that it was very easy to see forward by slipping the airplane a little bit. You step on a rudder a little bit and you could look forward. You don't really need to see super straight forward anyway all the time. There's a pretty great crankshaft here. This is the crankshaft out of a radial engine. This is the crankshaft out of a radial engine. It's a single bank radial. You can count the cylinders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Over here, suspiciously enough, is a 9-cylinder. It's about the size of the one out of here, and that's what's in the middle of that. That's what holds all the pistons. And this is a Sopwith Camel, very famous airplane, and it's in mint condition. And this aircraft is a replica built in 1989, using original plans. Completed in 2004. It's an original engine. Original Vickers. This thing is worth a fortune. If that is an original engine, it's corroding a bit. It needs some care. It is totally corroding. This aircraft needs a little help. Original Vickers machine guns up there. That's pretty cool. Well, if somebody knew how to use an English wheel, beautiful. Yeah, this is a flying model, a radio controlled model. And she's sitting at the Evergreen Air and Space Museum, just in front of the Spruce Goose. Nice view of the Jenny, and the Wright Flyer up there. Pretty awesome. Let's go check out the rotary engine. So this is a pretty famous engine. Powered a bunch of airplanes at the end of the Second World War. It was sort of developed, I guess, must have been in development before the war. But the final version of it is this monster right here. 7 magnetos around the hub there, and it's 4 banks of pistons. 8 cylinders. And the coolest thing ever, they got one over here and they've cut it all open. It's all cut open, and they put an electric motor on it, a gear drive, a chain drive, and then you come over here and you push this button and it turns. And over here you got your supercharger, a bunch of gear drive units doing stuff, and you got 4 crankshafts, 4 banks of pistons for 28 pistons. And pretty neat over here, there's one, this cutaway here shows the full stroke. She was just at the bottom, she's coming all the way up. It's about a 6-inch stroke. Pistons coming to the top of the stroke. Oh, got full compression right there, and down she goes. That was 6 inches. Another thing I should mention is that these engines did not rev high. I believe 25, whoa, she ran out, we'll press it again. I believe about 2,500 RPM. So here, let's look at this piston, because the valves are in operation. So right now, the intake valve just closed, so it's a compression stroke. So you're under compression right now, piston comes up to the top, bang, the spark plug fires. Pushes the piston back down. Both valves should be closed right now. And at the bottom, the exhaust valve should open up. There she is, she opens up. Oh, that's so cool. Exhaust valve opens up all the way, and the piston comes up and pushes the bad air out. This is the third of 4 strokes. Oh, my little thing ran out. Press it again. Up to the top. And so now the intake valve opens and it's sucking air and fuel in. Sucking air and fuel in. It's getting all that explosive mixture in there. Down to the bottom of the stroke. Valve closes, compression stroke begins, and it's pushed into a small little space, and the spark plug ignites right now. Boom. I really like this. I wonder how a guy could get one. At first they had cooling problems at the back of the motor, but they solved it. It became pretty reliable. There's 4 of them up in the air right there on the Spruce Goose. Mounted on a wooden airplane, and those propellers are 17 feet in diameter. This is what it looked like when it was on the back of a bomber. And where that engine has, it appears to have like plastic air intake tubes, this engine they're very much metal. Beautiful. And the Spruce Goose has an anchor. The Spruce Goose is a boat. It's an experimental boat. There's a look at all the engines. By the way, the Wright Flyer over there, that Wright Flyer aircraft, the first flight that every, history books is so famous. The length of the first flight went from that wingtip to the 3rd engine. That was the first flight. Everybody's making a lot of fuss about that. Way back in 1903, didn't actually go very far. And this airplane here was developed. This airplane, there was hundreds of these things in the skies 13 years later. Pretty cool. Outside of Evergreen, a whole bunch of stuff out there. You got a MiG-29. They got a Boeing 747 that I think has 63 million miles on it or something huge like that. They got a guy walking his dog. They got an F-14 Tomcat. That looks like the back of an F-102. This is a replica of the jet fighter that the Germans put out right at the end of the war. And this aircraft is brand new. They built 5 replicas a while back. Pretty famous project, actually. And this is one of them. It's worth a couple $1 million, if not 3. Inside the engines are modern engines that they got used out of a business jet. So this aircraft is safe and reliable, although no one's flying it around. It's a single-seater. got some interesting leading edge flaps, eh? They really come out quite a long ways. That's some pretty advanced design. Look at that one hanging there between the engine and the fuselage. Let's see what's inside it. And she's brand new. You could eat off the thing. I wonder if they had to make, you know what, they would have taken that off an existing plane. That's probably off a Piper or something like that, the landing gear. There's no way they cast landing gear. They would have used existing, and that would have given them existing wheels and brakes. I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have done something there. It looks like it's fabric covered. It looks like a fabric covered aircraft. I see some rivets there, but this is all fabric. I'll have to research this one. There it is. And a Focke-Wulf 109 right here. That's worth a lot of money too. Again, this airplane is privately built. Everett, Washington, home of Boeing. Another custom-built airplane that resembles a German fighter. Wow. The propeller also spun a fan that sucked air in to cool the engine. Somebody's got a nice little model collection. Gun sight. pretty complicated. Sure has some nice lines. Very famous plane. They sure built a lot of these. Quite a few air forces flew them. They actually gave these to a lot of other countries. Hey, there's one in Canadian Library. Quite a few aircraft flew them. Quite a few air forces flew this aircraft. This aircraft was in Puerto Rico. It's a little bigger than it looks when you stand right next to it. It's kind of pretty big. The leading edge wing flaps are out. Again, she looks like she's freshly painted. Oh, they got a Japanese jet right here. I wonder how many of these they made.
Shortly after sunrise on the
Oh, they've got the searchlight on. Well, that's an airport beacon light is on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, where can you get one of these? I want one. Put it down at the end of the driveway. I like it. This is called the Lynx Trainer. These are home builts over here. Got a Quickie, plans built. Very efficient airplane. Goes 200 miles per hour on 110 horse. And this red one, this is the prototype Van RV6. This airplane is famous. I believe it's the most popular kit plane ever. The company that makes them, Van's Aircraft in Oregon, not too far from here, they are the #1 seller of kit planes in the world ever. No other manufacturer has sold as many. This particular design, the 2-seat, became the RV9 with a bigger wing for training, and it became the RV7 which is just a more modern kit. This RV6, you had to drill every hole, find every hole, cut every piece of metal. The RV7 is all pre-punched, so you don't have to measure anything. You just put clecos in the holes and rivets in them, and away you go. So the new airplanes are quite a bit easier to make than the old ones were. And now I think there's an RV14, which is just a bigger version of this for bigger people. Nice. Ejection seat right there. Whoa, look at that. The pilot sitting right on top of it, eh? This is a fuel tank, this giant thing here. 200 gallons extra. Gun right there. Ooh, another one goes way back. The engine's in her. It's way back there. Pretty cool. The pilot sits right on top of it. On top of the engine's way back behind the landing gear. It's really something. And this thing is just huge. This is an F-106, I believe. So this is when they were getting more and more and more power. The last of the Century Series fighters, and they considered it a fighter, but look how big it is. So what became an intercept fighter back in the day was something that could just go really fast and get to another aircraft and shoot. They didn't really do any dogfighting. This thing is ginormously huge. The landing gear is 8 feet high. That is an honest 8 feet up there. This is crazy. Oh, and she's got a big bomb in there. Right? That's probably a fuel tank. That's not a bomb, that's a fuel tank. Put whatever you want in there. And this method of bringing air into an engine, it was tried, yeah, it was cool, it worked, but it wasn't super efficient. It created a lot of drag. So, oh, it looks like this airplane was doing stuff. Shot down 1.5 planes and launched a bunch of missiles. Those would be cruise missile launches or something like that. But you can find out exactly. Let's get the tail number on her. Oh, this one will say right here. It'll say right here. Oh, it's not a 106, it's a 105. Oh, look at that. Brand new in the factory. Nice shot. Let's get the tail number on this plane. It was in the 57th wing. Make sure I get the tail number. So this is an F105. It's one of the last of the Century Series fighters, and they had just gotten so big by then. They were really just interceptors. They were just things that could go really fast and fire missiles. I don't think we did any dogfighting. The engine's way in the back, eh? See, where does it start? You can usually tell by hatches and latches, but the engine of this airplane is like right about, well, the afterburner's right there. The engine, I believe, is kind of like right, I don't know, it's kind of right here. It's behind the landing gear, I know that. I'll show you. Well, this airplane's got a lot of room for weapons and storage and electronics. You got the air intakes here. The whole center section is a bomb bay, or a fuel tank in this case. After the fuel tank is where the air gets brought into the engine, and there's one big giant engine right there. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Another look at this, the F-4 Phantom, a fine McDonnell aircraft built in St. Louis, Missouri, and she's cozy in there. That's tight. What are they doing? Oh, NASA. The guy hitting things. Well, that airplane they're working on sure looks special. NASA 708. Well, this one's in a little bit better condition than the last one I saw. There's a nice cutaway of a helicopter turbine engine. That's very nice. This is the front of it. This is the air intake. This is the this part's the transmission, and it's reducing the RPM to a shaft speed that's usable. Otherwise the turbine's spinning like way faster, eh? And here's your compression stages. So basically raw air is coming in here. By the time it comes out of here and into this area here, by the time it's in there, it's at high pressure. At high pressure it comes back here, it does something here. I don't know what happens here. And it comes around, and this is the burner section of the engine. And this is the burner section of the engine. I think these are the fuel injectors right here. So then boom, it explodes and hot gases are going like mad. They're splitting actually. The majority of them are going through this fan, and a little bit more coming to this area, pressurize this and get this blade going. And then they have a final blade. And this is a really, you can spin this one, I think. All not connected. I don't know why this one is separate. And it's very different from the other ones. Well, look at how these are made. Major technology in this. Major technology. And it all has to just barely miss the wall in here. This is really quite beautiful. So then your burnt gas is coming out through these guys, and your burnt gases are coming out here. I wonder if we could figure out more about the fuel system. And we can. So yeah, your fuel system's right here. Here comes the line. Here comes the line. And now we can figure out the fuel system of this one too. Here's your fuel injector. These are the injectors right here. And so this is high pressure fuel pressure, and they're daisy chaining along here. I'm actually kind of surprised to see it that way. This would be a temperature. This is your exhaust gas temperature reading right here. Very important. But these guys here, you see how it comes to this thing here, and then that thing goes through, and there's your injector. It's just pounding fuel into there. There's got to be igniters here as well, but once it's burning, I suppose it's burning. Pretty neat. And then down in your gear section, your gear section will have all your accessory drives on it, and it'll reduce like crazy. But you need a generator, you need power, you need hydraulic pump. Let's figure out what's what here though. What is that? Let's stay on it. Tag. It's fun trying to figure things out when you don't know what they are, but it's fun. Bit of a nose on her. And I do like the Catalina. Here's another experimental. I believe this is the glass air. Look at that. The way the canopy opens. Looks more complicated than it needs to. This thing is beautiful. Oh, how would you like to have a Boeing landing gear as your fence post, or maybe a gate post? I wonder if you could get a couple of them. They got a pretty great model of the solar system here, and I'm standing at Saturn, and each one of these round things, that's Pluto way down there, the two people at the statue, and this is Saturn. And if you walk towards the Space Museum, behind me is the Aviation Museum, Space Museum in front of me. And here now we get to Jupiter. This is a model. This is so cool. And the end of it's right here. The end of our solar system. So it shows you the range between everything quite well. Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, and the Sun. And there's even like diagrams that tell you all about it over there. But basically, it's a scale model of our solar system. There's the Sun, Mercury, Venus, the Earth, Mars, and then way out there. That Predator thing is huge. Look, that is a really big wingspan. That's got to be 100 feet. And here's the front end of a F-15 Eagle. This Eagle, it's got some names on it. Captain M. Smith. That is the son of the owner and founder of Evergreen Aviation, and he was a captain in the United States Air Force, and sadly died in a car accident back east. And he's got his name on this F-15, and also across the street they have a gate guard at the local airport. They have a gate guard F-15 and also has his name on it. And missile racks, eh? Look at how they come off, what they look like, latches and things. Ooh. So they'd put the bomb on, and then these little guys would adjust to hold the bomb snug, or whatever you put there. Possibly even a fuel tank. Wonder what those holes are for. These 4 latches open this little tiny panel, and something's in there. What's in there? Oh, I love looking at engines. This is the front end over here. Oh, she looks pretty complicated. This is the front end, so compression part of it. I wonder how far they got fans going back. This looks like the first burner section here, because those look like injectors. Look at that welding. You can't even see the TIG lines. What do you have going on here? So those are your fuel lines, which means that it goes all the way over to there. So your fuel pump, let's follow it to the fuel pump, down and low. So that always at the front of a jet engine is your gearbox, and you need a gearbox because you need to be able to start the engine. You also have to drive accessories. You need a generator and you need a hydraulic pump, maybe 2 of each per engine. And you can tell this part of the engine is where the first real hot stuff happens, and that's because all the pipes do this so they don't crack. The expansion things, everything can move here. This is gonna expand a little bit. You can tell you're in the hot section of an engine when you see all the pipes doing this. You know that the engine is going to be expanding in this area. And I wonder if these are the afterburner injectors. So these are more fuel lines, and each one is this big. Yeah, this is afterburners, because the afterburner uses more fuel than the regular burners. See how the regular burners have the line's only that big, and the afterburner, the line is that big. Bit of a difference. And so this is got hydraulic pressure in it, and it's moving this ram, which is focusing. It's pulling on these deals, and it focuses these things open and close. They can fan down, scrunch it down. And this is a very used engine, but beautiful. Smells nice. Who doesn't like smell of jet fuel? Nice look at the MiG here. Somebody polished it up and gave it a paint job. They sure did a nice job. Oh, you can tell that this MiG was one of the ones that got purchased and used in flight training they actually flew them against their own guys, Nevada and California. Oh, I like this. Look at the visibility out of there. Beautiful A-10. They're always so big when you walk up to them. I hear there's a new version of this coming. This one's been flying for 40 years or something like that. It'll say it over here. This particular one right here, is a Gulf War veteran. It was in Saudi Arabia for Operation Desert Shield in 1991. You know what? This scoop is a vent for the gun, and the gun's missing. The gun would be in there. I got a flashlight I'll pull out. Yeah, you'd otherwise see the gun in there. The SR-71 program used some pretty senior pilots. You had to do a whole bunch for the Air Force before you got to this plane. Can anybody see if the nose has a little tiny kick up to it? Apparently it does. Apparently they gave the nose a little tiny flex up to move the center of lift forward, which changed the flight characteristics just a little bit. Well, I'm at the Evergreen Air and Space Museum again, having a look at the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. Of the 50 Blackbirds built, Evergreen has the one with the highest amount of surveillance flight time at 3,512 hours. That's this plane right here, 3,512 hours on her. Wow. That is the second highest flight time of any Blackbird built. The only one that has more is a trainer. So this aircraft right here has the most amount of combat time of any SR-71 Blackbird built. So it probably has had the most amount of missile shot at it and not one hit it, because here she is. She's just too fast. Another point of note is that only 4 Blackbirds got over 3,000 hours, and this one has 3,500 hours on it. There was 50 built total. The first 18 were A-12 models, and they were built in Burbank, California between 1962 and 1964. 13 were single-seaters, 2 were the M21 drone carriers, and 3 were YF-12 interceptors. The program was greenlit on February 11th of 1960 with a $96 million contract from the CIA. At that time, the CIA was using high-flying Lockheed U-2s for overflights of Russia. They were going right over. Until Gary Powers got shot down in 1960. But even before Gary got shot down, they knew that Russian missile technology was going to get better, and so they wanted a higher, faster solution for their long-term surveillance needs. Everybody at the Pentagon figured a jet up at 80,000 feet going Mach 3 could not be hit by a missile. The math just didn't work. A 100-foot-long object traveling 3,000 feet per second, that is 18 miles up in the air, is just impossible to hit by a conventional missile. First, you have to get it 18 miles up in the air, and then you got to be in the same place as this thing, and it's going 3,000 feet per second, so there's just no way. And they never did hit it. The Blackbird family of aircraft were designed and built in secrecy at the Lockheed Skunk Works factory. This plant was adjacent to their main Burbank factories during the 1960s. When they got the contract, advanced new engines had to be designed and built. Advanced new composites had to be designed for extreme heat. New metal technology and tooling was needed to make the titanium airframe and titanium pieces that had never been done before. No other metal could take the heat of Mach 3 flight. When each airplane was finished, it was hauled to Groom Lake, Nevada for flight testing. Special trailers were built to haul the completed aircraft the 300 miles. It took 3 days. This secret airbase had been developed a few years earlier for the Lockheed U-2 spy plane program. Back then it was called the Ranch, but today it is Area 51. It has a very long runway lined up with a huge dry lake bed, which makes for an even bigger runway in front of the runway. It's in an extremely remote area of northern Nevada. It's a very good place to test high-performance airplanes. And 20 miles to the west is where they were testing nuclear bombs regularly. So the area was very secure, very private, no one around. This one's got the nose blisters. This is one of the last models that flew. And she's got the most recent nose on it with the big blisters. she's got all the latest stuff on her. Pretty great video of it here. That looks like Edwards Air Force Base right there. That's a NASA bird, so that is Edwards. That's one of the NASA planes. And they only flew out of Edwards.
Its radar cross-section, for example, is lower than the current B-1B bomber.
The last 32 Blackbirds built were SR-71 models. They were a little bit longer than the A-12, and they had 2 crew positions. The extra length gave them room for more fuel, which gave the plane more range. These airplanes were built between 1963 and 1968, again back at the Burbank factory. By the time the first aircraft was ready for flight test in 1964, a political situation had revealed the project's existence to the American public. They weren't secret anymore. The program was no longer super secret, and so now the aircraft could be flight tested at Lockheed's nearby Palmdale facility. This saved a ton of money and speeded up production as the program was getting bigger. What a view.
People say, well, this isn't a very big wing. I said, you look at it here.
Yeah.
Hell, this is all wing.
Yeah.
I said, there's a panel for the drag chute.
Yep.
We have a drag chute in storage.
Oh, really?
They haven't ever brought it out here. So I want to put it right here behind the engine. Put that glass case that's up there. Put it here right behind the engine and put the drag chute inside of it. And it's got lights on it and everything else.
A really nice look at the stabilizers of the rudders. I've never had a look at them like this. And the red shaft, did that come with it when you guys got it? Because I see them.
It must have.
Because I see them in maintenance. Every aircraft has one of those, and every time they take an engine out, they do that.
Yeah, if they're going to pull an engine, they have to put the wing up to do it.
Yeah, and it's actually
we're the only museum that's got a wing up in the air.
I know, it's fantastic. This whole section here, the bottom 14 inches is the vertical, the horizontal or the vertical stabilizer, and that's what the red thing is mounting to it.
14 inches that drives this part up here.
And interesting, the paint job on this one, they actually didn't fly with this paint job.
No.
It was actually come up with after the airplane was finished, and the way they were going to mark it out. And
it was in such bad shape when we got it.
The wing on an edge.
There wasn't really much markings on it. It was still legible, so we repainted the whole airplane this flat black.
What a beautiful shape of the wing. It's got that. It's got that thing right there.
I said it got bent in transport.
No, it's just how did they? And they figured this all out before computers.
Yeah.
I mean, this airplane was basically
the shockwave. Instead of the shockwave coming off of the tip of the wing, it threw it back further back onto the wing surface rather than off the tip.
Yeah. That is fantastic.
I tease people about, oh, you bent our wing. You know?
No, it's amazing that he came up with that, and he came up with it, by being able to see the air. There was a nice view of the aerial refueling part, right?
Yeah.
And the round little deal in front of that is the inertial navigation system, right?
That's the window for the Star Trek.
Boy, when do you ever get to see an SR-71 from this angle?
Top part of your inertial nav is the Astro Tracker.
So, even though this is the second highest hours on any Blackbird, I feel this is the most experienced one, because this is the one that flew missions. The one that flew more than this didn't fly any missions. It was a trainer.
Yeah.
And this thing had a lot of missiles shot at it. There's even photographs of missiles shot at this thing.
I asked the pilots,
they all missed.
Do you ever see a missile come up ahead of you? And
Never ahead of them.
No. He says, we saw them in our rear view mirror.
Yeah. The pilots had a little periscope in the front of the canopy, and a lot of them, they say they flew with it open. They flew with it out all the time. And also the aircraft had retractable navigation lights. It didn't have nav lights on the outside. No. It had a red light on the top and a red light on the bottom. And they
only after you got below 60,000 feet.
Yeah. And otherwise there's no markings on her.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit bigger from this angle than,
oh yeah,
it looks a lot bigger It's basically the size of a Boeing 737.
All the way to the nose, you know. That provided what, 23, 24% of the lift.
So the next time you get a ladder, look down the chines from the front and ask the pilots about that. The nose was adjusted to move the center of lift forward, not the center of gravity, the center of lift.
Center of lift.
And it was to move it forward to change a little nasty flight characteristic. It had a few little nasty flight characteristics at first.
I know the center of gravity was controlled by
the fuel.
By the fuel.
And that's why they pumped it back and forth all the time.
Bill Weaver. Bill was one of the test pilots for Lockheed.
We can film some of these.
Door may be heavily loaded. Yeah, it would be if you...
Hoist a cable. Hoist cable socket. Well, I'm guessing something comes out when you do that.
Yeah, you take that.
But this is all fuel tank. Look, there's round head rivets again.
Yeah.
And this is a really lightweight piece.
Well, that'd be just a cover over the instrument that was placed in here, whether it's a jammer or a camera.
Oh no, what happened? Oh, my flashlight burned out.
Oh no.
Oh, what a bad timing on that. Actually mounts on my other one.
Here for 20 years, and suddenly we developed a hydraulic leak underneath this glass.
So this is the largest piece of titanium ever made, right?
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that would hold any heat when the plane landed. It was the only thing that would hold a bit of heat from the supersonic flight.
Well, it all fit. The tire fit up into a air-conditioned chamber here, but this part here. Well,
and this little thing was air conditioned to keep the tire from exploding, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
But the tire still got it.
They actually blew
Very hot
air into it from the Oh, this is fantastic. And that's the top skin right there.
Yeah.
That is the top skin of the aircraft. And before it is a fuel tank, and after it's a fuel tank, but not in this section. And the start cart, where did the start cart mount into? It must have been sort of near the front of the engine.
Well,
you see guys doing a screwing these things on right after they start the motor. You can see them putting one of these panels back on.
Yeah.
And that sucker lifted up into it, right?
Yeah,
this thing right here.
Right here, that hydraulically lifted this up.
Oh, really?
And this starter dog then engaged in the bottom of the engine.
Yep.
Now, one of our guys says, you know, it'd really be neat. These engines still work, you know.
Oh, they still work.
We ought to take it outside and fire it back up.
I think you should.
I said, oh yeah, it should blow somebody's eardrums out.
The pilots say that they could hear this thing when they were starting the second engine.
Oh God, yeah.
They said they could hear this. They loved it.
It just...
They loved it. Yeah.
You know, it just wound up at about 8,000 RPM. And
so they were hooked up back here. You got
both of them. You got drive shafts coming out of both of them, and then tie into a center.
Gotta be some marine stuff in there.
Let me see it up here. Yeah, there's your drive shaft going up.
Yeah.
And into transfer case. And let's see.
How does the second one hook up to it?
Well, they both feed into the transfer case.
Yeah.
And drive a center transfer case and then into this.
This is awesome.
I said I would
have liked to build this.
Well, they ran out of Buick engines.
I heard that.
They used so damn many of them and went to Chevy.
They had to. I can't believe they were using used engines.
Their
Space Shuttle Flight Simulator.
And this is identical seating to the aircraft that's outside. They had to do roughly 50 flights.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Then they went out to the Beechcraft that's outside, and they had to fly about another 50 flights in that before they'd ever let them into the space shuttle. So this is the cockpit side for the airplane. That's the cockpit side for the space shuttle controls.
That's fantastic.
But we've never gotten it working or set up.
These are electronic warfare sensors that probably tell it when it's being shot at or looked at. Nose section. The nose section is held on by 4 bolts, and you can see it's a separate piece. You can see this one's got a gap. That's hard to believe. But 4 bolts hold the nose on at this line right here. And I'm also told there's a little shim. Then the center of gravity of the aircraft was adjusted by tipping the nose up just a little tiny bit. But one thing about this aircraft that you can kind of not really see very good from this angle, but the whole forward fuselage section rides on the air, so to speak. The engines, when it rides, it doesn't ride totally level. It rides with the nose high just a little tiny bit. And you can notice that the engines are pointing directly at me, but the nose is pointing horizontally. If you notice, the engines are actually pointing into the ground a little bit right now, because the engine is not, the aircraft in level flight has the nose up just a little tiny bit. 80% of the lift of this aircraft comes from this body, the whole body, just the air plowing into the bottom of the body. And it just, I believe this little box was about the most state-of-the-art thing on the planet when they made it. Nice look at the electronics countermeasure gear there on the front one. That's electronics countermeasure, and that back there is a camera. Showing some more of the service bays on her. This front bay right here, they opened it up after every flight. I think the batteries came out of this aircraft. This front bay here, I believe, had the battery in it, and I know that after every flight the battery was removed and the airplane was plugged in. And you got bays going back all the way to there. I think that's the back of the last bay, but I think there's 4 bays. And they had, the front one was radios and things that the airplane needed, so it wasn't stuff that was getting mission sensitive. The mission equipment was in all the other ones, and that was this kind of stuff. Every one of the planes had one of these. And this is a camera that would go in the nose, and the nose of this aircraft came off in 4 bolts, and the whole nose would just pop off. And different packages were in them. This one's really got something. You see if you look at it from the side, you see this blister right here. That's a blister. So that's radar. This is a radar scanning, a ground scanning radar nose on this particular one. And that's the gist of it right behind that panel. These little blisters right here, this is a threat warning, electronic threat warning. If somebody was locking a missile system onto this aircraft, those suckers there would detect it. And then these other things right there, those guys would project. These things would blast stuff that came out of these boxes right there, would make things that confused the enemy. They made the enemy think there was quite a bit more missile or aircraft in the sky, and then the missile will get confused. And you can tell because this piece here is super light, really lightweight. It's a sensor behind it, and everything else on this airplane, if you tap on it, is a little stiffer. And nice to see the cockpits are open, and I hear there's a parachute. I heard there is a periscope, and that must be this little guy right here. That's a periscope. And some pilots tell me that they flew with it extended at all times. The aircraft only has 4 lights. It has a landing light, a taxi light, it has a red beacon on the bottom and a red beacon on the top. Both the red beacons extend hydraulically. They go up and down. They put them away when they go supersonic. Interesting that the cockpits are open. Usually they keep them closed. Wonder why these ones are open. And nice to see some of the bays are open. This is the most forward bay, I believe. And right here, what is this sucker? This is an this piece here is probably what's connected to those blisters up front there. And it basically, so this box right here is anti-electronic warfare kind of stuff. What it does is it sends out a whole bunch of signals through either these little deals here or these little blisters up here. I think the blisters are sensors. I think these are sensors that tell you when there's a threat, when a missile, and I think these things blast the signal that's being made from these guys. And basically what this does is it tells the enemy missile that there's 50 aircraft up there, the whole sky is full of aircraft, go shoot one of them, and basically not pick this one. It basically confuses the crap out of the missile that's being fired at it. And we could look it up a bit more. These are, oh, they got 3 different ones here from the program. And remains classified. That's because this stuff is still in use. It's in all kinds of jets. Lots and lots of jets. And this, what is this one? This, and there was quite a few different ones made. This one here looks like a different one. Looks like something very different. I wonder if this is a camera. There was a side looking radar. I wonder if that's what that is. That one is definitely an electronic one. And you can tell it got really hot. Whatever it was doing, it had a cooling tank. I wish it was up in the air and you could see inside it. Inside the nose gear well there's 2 big nitrogen tanks, and there's a third one. Those ones have 105 liters each, and there's a little 50-liter one in their wing root over here. What else do we have here? What's this thing? Don't know what that is. Oh, and so this aircraft had equipment bays just like the one that's open over there, and there's the one back here has a lens in it, and it would have this camera in there. And you see the camera shoots right there. And there's your camera lens right there. And this is a really big, expensive camera. And it fit into that bay right there with the window. And that window's made out of the same stuff as an oven. There is a bay, and I'm suspecting that it opens up with just 4 screws. You see the 2 white things amongst all the red writing there? And there's 2 more white ones back there. And being that this is one of the last ones flying, you're going to notice that this is now made out of composites. The first ones weren't. They were made out of, if you see the aircraft in Seattle, it's got a titanium nose cone, which is what this little bit here is. I heard that's stainless steel though. But if you look at the one in Seattle, that's made out of titanium, and it had a massive radar reflection. So they asked the company to actually develop this stuff and make this. Also, the same company, they did the rudders. The first SR-71s and A-10s, the rudders were made of titanium, and they had a huge radar signature. And so they made new ones out of composites, and you'd think they would get lighter, but they didn't. They actually got a little bit heavier. I'll show you the rudders in a minute. Nice look inside here, and you can see all the special things that are going on in there. I should get my light out. Oh, there's some tires. I'll just put my book on the ground. You know you're really serious about researching here. I came with this book. I'll get into it in a minute here. But you know you're serious about looking at airplanes when you bring a book. Let's put a flashlight in there. There we go. A lot of weird different things happening in there. Oh, I should put my flashlight on this little guide. Flashlight kind of almost mounts on this thing. There you go. There we go. There we go. So you can see the blisters, a lot of stuff going on to change the air and deal with the air. It's really quite special what's going on. Oh, this is something. This has air inside of it as well. You see all those little slots in it? Air, high pressure air is right here. They're holding the shock wave of an aircraft that's going above Mach 1 has a speed of sound shock wave, and they hold it in the first area of the inlet here, and they bleed off a whole bunch of it into those slots. Goes down the middle of this thing and gets let out in a different, it actually goes right out and gets vented out of the aircraft. And that's why this thing has so many little doors. You see that? See the little vents and things up top? Some of them have doors and some of them don't. Some of them are just full-time venting, and other ones only vent in certain parts of flight. We'll get to that in a minute, but this one's opened right up. Really cool to be able to see in here. Again, you can see there's a layer where more air comes off. You see that split layer? There's a lot going on inside this thing. I think some of that air I hear goes right around the whole engine and comes out at the back. Or it comes out here. No, it doesn't. This is something different. You see how there's a wall there? See how there's a wall in there? Oh, I could look at this airplane forever. Something really unusual to me is that I'm looking at round head rivets here. So much of this airplane was screwed together, it's beyond belief, but I can't see why this airplane has round head rivets here. This is like a repair or something? This doesn't look right. That has got to be a repair. There's this one panel that has round head rivets and not another panel on the entire airplane. These panels are all screwed on. Wow. All right, we got a grade school coming through. Now this is pretty incredible to be able to see her from here. Well, let's have a look at the tires we're over here. They're 22 ply, they hold 415 pounds of nitrogen. The brakes are in the middle of them. This one shows up pretty good. And as soon as they landed, that's a pretty cool little thing there. They put a brake fan, that's a gas-powered fan, and they would shove that right in front there to cool the brakes. The landing gear this is a very special engine, and it's very, very nice to look at right now.
Device that lifted the wing up, and then we stored it across in a chicken barn over here on the other side that Evergreen owned. Well, he stored a bunch of fuel and oil and tires and everything else in that barn, and we don't know whether it was somebody breaking in and started the fire.
Oh, really?
It was,
on its side here is a Titan 4 rocket. There's some engines. I do like looking at engines. So let's have a look at this one. Okay. Where can you buy one of these? So this is a civilian motor. It's not going to have the afterburner section here. I wonder if that's water injection. But here's your fuel burning section over here. You see, trace it from the injectors. So this big pipe goes in, That looks like an injector. Comes over from here. This is the upper stage. Looks brand new. I'll bet you this ring busts off when it flies. I bet you this whole section's gone. I bet you it splits right here. Oh, and that's pretty cool stuff right there. That is the instrument ring of an Apollo rocket. So an Apollo rocket, the brain of the whole thing is just this ring. All the computers, I don't know if this is it a Saturn? Yeah, it is. It is a Saturn. This ring is this is the brains of the whole thing. This is what controls the whole rocket. These are the flight computers are in here. Let's see if we can find them. Let's keep looking around here. Something sat on those platforms. That tank was used for something. Sphere. A bunch of stuff is missing. Look at all these things that are missing. There's just tons of stuff in there. Electronics all removed. I think the computer sat in this section right here. Look at all the electrical connections. There's a ton of stuff missing from this. There's one of these in Houston that's complete. And what is this motor? This is an upper stage maybe. This is not a Saturn. This is maybe this is the this powered the second and third stages. But we can really see it pretty good here. So let's look at it. Let's see what we can find out about it. Let's start with the back of it. So rocket motors have a lot of issues with cooling, and this is the rocket from the second stage and third stage of a Saturn. So this is certified for human powered flight. And there's a lot of things going on here. This bell, to cool it when it was fired, these little pipes are actually full of fuel, and one of them goes down. The fuel goes in two directions. It goes down one pipe down to the end, and it gets turned over and comes back up the other one and into this collector. And okay, this is what I think is going on. I think all these little rods are cooled by fuel. Fuel is injected into the top of them, and they're pumping fuel down them. I think it goes all the way down to the bottom. It moves over one and it comes back. You see how every second one in this area, and it's collected in this ring. See how every second one is different? It's collected in this ring. This is a little sensor that does something when it realizes that it's got pressure. There's got to be a little sensor that does something when it realizes it's got pressure. So you see all these little pipes. You see how every second one goes into this collector? And so the fuel, it's now under pressure and it's now been heated, and it goes into this collector. This is not all the fuel of the engine. This is just what's being used to cool. But it goes into here, goes back up and back into the turbo pump. Well, I gotta make sure I'm pointing my camera the right way. But it all gets collected in this ring. It's gone from the top down these pipes. It's moved over. So the fuel, the cooling fuel, a little bit of the fuel of this engine is used for cooling, and it's in the thrust plate at the top, and it gets injected into these little tubes, and it goes down the tube, and it's cooling because the other side of the tube is a burning engine, and it goes down to the bottom. It moves over one, and it comes back up to this collector ring, and you can see how every second one of these little guys, you can see how it's different, and it goes into this deal, goes up here and back into the fuel pump, but it's heated now. I wonder what's in the sphere. I don't know much about second stage engines, and you can tell that this thing expands. It's got expansion joints everywhere. This whole bell gets really hot. And over here, this is an exhaust. What else is going on here? So your main fuel pump's inside here. So crowded here. Here's a bunch of Saturn stuff. That sure looks like a Saturn. Oh my goodness. Well, this is really showing it quite intensely here. This shows the cooling rings. This is just the bell. This is really, let's go to the other side because it's probably lit better. But so this is recovering the fuel. They're using fuel to cool the engine. And so fuel is going to go, this whole ring gets pressurized. These are fuels going in here, and the fuel is going into these rods. And so fuel from the tank is being pressurized down all these rods to cool it, because this is the thrust chamber inside here. So fuel's coming down these rods to cool them. It comes all the way down. They come all the way down. They go down to the bottom, and they, oh, my light didn't. So fuel goes into this ring by these holes, pressurizes this area, and then the fuel comes down these rods, comes down to the bottom, and then it moves over one. This is another pressure ring, and they move over one, and it goes back up, and it goes up, and it goes into this. And so now your warmed up fuel is collecting in this big bugger, and they're actually using this ring as the to thrust vector. It's actually holding onto the engine's frame, and it's all collected back up here. Oh, I put a dish here, and goes back into the engine. This is pretty cool. Oh, we're on the back side of the thrust plate here. Wonder why. Oh, that's how it mounts. The top of this, we're at the top side. The top is liquid oxygen, and the bottom is the fuel. But this is the very back of it here, and this is the spray. Wow. So they had to make this section. What was happening is, before they had all the vanes on it, it was just a mess of fire going on in here, and it would make hot spots, and it would burn holes all the way through. So then they came up with this stuff here, and it sort of localized the fire burning into one little area, and really made the air fuel mixture mix better. This is showing quite nicely here what's going on. The other fluid is in the backside here, and this ring is what's mounted up to that. And so the fuel that's in this area here is behind this and coming down all these lines. So the fuel in this area, in this pressured area, is what's behind that ring is what's behind that ring and coming down those lines. And it's got a part number if you'd like to buy this. It's from the Smithsonian, courtesy of NASA. I wonder if that's titanium. I'll bet you it is. So these are the nozzles, and they're quite big. They're really so much bigger than the Titan stuff I've studied. Pretty cool to see this here. Next up, they got a chunk of a Soviet nice looking spaceship, Russian dudes. What is this? Chunk of Skylab? It's Skylab. Oh, it's built by McDonnell Douglas. And here you got a bunch of stuff that you need for firing a rocket. When you fuel a rocket, you need to have control. You need to know what's going on. And look, the whole thing's right here. It's telling you what's going on, what all the tanks have in them. That is pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. Rather well done setup, eh? You can see. And I think this is how you fuel a rocket. You need one of these. There's more rocket pieces over here. This looks like the top of a Titan missile. This is where the nuclear weapon goes. This part here is the mount of it, and the nuclear weapon actually, it sits right on this plate. And this picture of one right here, this is in the Tucson, Arizona Museum, and they had to cut this opening so that the satellites could see this. And this section, it held a whole bunch of little metal balls to confuse radar. But here, you've got a Titan missile sitting like it's good to go. Super crowded museum. She's 90 feet tall. And those are tanks. You're looking at the outer skins of a tank. There wasn't any inner surface. And this is a giant fuel tank. It's joined here to the oxygen tank. This is the oxygen tank, and this is the end of the first stage, and that's the second stage, basically the tank right there. The engine of the second stage is right here. This is the oxygen for the first stage, and this is the fuel tank for the first stage. Starts here and goes down to, and they pump fuel as fast as they can. Let's have a look. Let's go have a look. And like I said, the skins are the outer surface. There is stuff inside the tanks. There are pipes that have other piping going to it. For the electronics and the control of it, they have this section here, and in this section is what all the wiring goes from one thing to the other. This is like the umbilical of the rocket. And again, your flight controls and everything are going to be in a ring way up there. The payload is this white section. In this case, that looks like a commercial satellite. Let's go down. We've made a little bit of a missile section here, a command and control center. This is not what the real one looks like. They do not look like this. I will insert here a little clip of the real one in Tucson, because you can go inside a real one. I was in there a little while ago. And here's your missile. And you can go all the way down to the bottom. It's worth doing. A couple of brand new engines down there. This thing is brand new. I wonder where they got the mounts for it. I wonder where these big orange things came from. Yeah, we're a museum and we want to mount a rocket. How do you do that? Oh, NASA's got a few of these lying around. I'm pretty sure you can have some. Because these don't look like something they were made. Look at the little spin wheels. They look like they totally adjust the rocket. They level off the rocket with these controls here, eh? You see? See, each mount has them. All right, so this rocket, wow, is it ever exposed? And it's brand new. Look at her. Need a little bit of light. All right, let's have a look at this. So you got two fuel pumps. Each engine is separate. And this is the fuel pump for this side. And you can go right underneath this thing. Oh, this is so cool. I wonder if I should go to a wide angle lens here. So, and here's the fuel pump on the other side. This fuel pump in the exhaust of it has a heat exchanger for the helium that would be used to pressurize the tanks to push the fuel out of the tanks. Basically, believe it or not, this is a tank, this whole bottom chunk. And at the bottom of this tank, inside it, are spherical helium tanks. And they have lines coming out, they come into the engine. Actually, they come down to here, and the helium gets heated gets heated quite a bit in here, and it goes back into to the top of the fuel tank and the oxygen tank to push the fuel out, to pressurize the tank. So they've got this one all labeled, and I can go over there and read it, but I like to guess things. So I'm gonna take some guesses here. And it's if I go over there and read it, it says what this. I'm gonna try and figure out what is the oxygen and what is the fuel. So your two fuel lines are right here. One of them goes to a pipe which goes up to the second section. The other one is just draining the bottom of this tank right here. I think that's what this one is. So that's the fuel and that's the oxygen. I'm guessing, but I can confirm that because in the engine, the fuel goes lower and the oxygen goes higher. So this is the thrust plate of the whole engine right here. And you'll notice it's mounted by it, and it actually gimbals by it. This is your fuel insertion right here. And above it is going to be the oxygen, the liquid oxygen insertion. So I can tell right now that this is the fuel line, this is the fuel line, this is the fuel side, fuel line, fuel side, so that's fuel. And this is oxygen. I can confirm that if I go over here and read it. Yeah, nasty, nasty fuel, hydrozyne. And so this other one is going to say oxygen. The oxidizer, liquid oxygen. Cool. So what is going on here is this is a gear drive right here, and there's an impeller right here for the fuel, and there's an impeller right here for the oxygen, and they are pumping like mad, just like mad. They go into here. Other things that are going on. There are some other things going on. The pump, these engines I believe are started by nitrogen pressure from the ground. They're mounted in a silo, and they basically get air started. And I'm wondering if that's this line right here. It wouldn't surprise me if that was this line right here, and this gets hooked up to the ground, and it's the first thing that spins up the fuel pump. Later on, so the nitrogen gets the thing spinning. This is all the hydrogen pumping section. There'll be another thing that is a pressure sensor somewhere, which could be in this line right there, and it will trigger the fuel valves to open when it's got pressure. And then it goes mad. Let's go to the other side. You can see how the exhaust pipe of this fuel pump is pretty clean, and the other one is bigger. It's got the heat exchanger in it. But otherwise, the fuel pumps are the same.
RFC range green, check step 468, RFC green screen. SOC LCR. Go ahead, LCR. Data support systems ready for launch, check 434. Check 434. Decimal 1 times 10 to the 6-inch pounds. SOC satellite vehicle launch and ready for launch.
Couple of things that are happening right here. Kind of looking at this engine right now. So this is your fuel. This is your fuel being injected into the plate. As the fuel's coming down, you can see a pipe coming off, and this pipe's heading over to the fuel pump. So this is pressurized by the fuel pump, and so it's actually running itself. There's basically a little rocket engine inside each one of these, and there's basically a little rocket inside. They're using the two fuels to spin a rocket inside it, you know, to make basically a little rocket and spin an impeller with a rocket in here. And that's what spins the pump once the engine's running. So to get power, you need pressurized fuel. And this looks like a sensor. So it's taking pressure off the line, and that would be a pressure sensor. But that line goes to feed the fuel pump, and this line feeds the engine. I'm trying to figure out where the fuel comes back, if it does that, because I'm told that all of these guys are pumping fuel. And I'm told that it turns around in here, goes back up the other one, which I find really hard to believe, because, and look, it's true, because they've got a drain down here. They have a drain for testing or for something. So the fuel goes back up, and now I can't find where it gets grabbed. This is right here is where the liquid oxygen is going into the top of the plate. Did I get that on my camera? I don't think I did. So right here is the liquid oxygen going into this is where the liquid oxygen is behind that. So I'm just trying to find where the fuel comes back up that's been cooling the bell, and how it comes back up. And it gets collected somehow. It comes out of here somehow. Oh, it must just get burned in the bottom of this one. This thing is brand new, eh? And here's what one looks like when it's been fired. Here's your 4 fuels going in. So liquid oxygen, liquid fuel, fuel, oxygen. That's a fuel pump, that's a fuel pump. Yeah, that's what she looks like after she's been fired. Hanging from the ceiling at the Evergreen Air and Space Museum is a wooden mock-up of a North American X-15 rocket plane. Only 3 of these planes were built in 1959, and one of them is the world's fastest crewed airplane. The X-15 launches from a huge B-52 mothership. It gets hauled up to 50,000 feet and then drops clear and fires its engines. The 3 aircraft built flew a total of 199 flights from 1959 to 1968. Most of the flights had either a high altitude flight profile or a lower, flatter flight profile, which resulted in really high speeds. The high altitude flights developed and used small rocket thrusters that became the reaction control systems for the space shuttle and other crewed rocket aircraft. Oh, something really cool you can see from this angle. If you see below, there is a vertical stabilizer below the back there, and you see how it's got a wedge shape to it? An interesting aerodynamic thing happened when they did that. The aircraft thinks it has a rudder, which is sticking out the airplane about 60 feet behind it by doing that. It creates so much drag in that one spot that the airplane thinks it's got a huge rudder on it. And they needed it, because this airplane went 4,500 miles per hour. They made it go Mach 6.7. Pete Knight. That's really interesting. These high altitude flights lasted for 80 seconds. They reached about 3,800 miles per hour, and the highest one made it to 354,000 feet. So that guy became an astronaut quite a few people that flew this became astronauts. The fastest flight ever was in 1962. They had wrecked an airplane. They actually wrecked one of these planes when they had to land it with full fuel, and it didn't like that, and it kind of broke in half. So that gave them an opportunity for some redesign. They cut the fuselage in half and lengthened it 28 inches to make the fuel storage bigger. Basically, this airplane is mostly fuel. They then added 2 ridiculous drop fuel tanks under the wings, and I have some pictures of that. The rocket plane used these tanks first, and then they dropped away. This new creation was named the X-15A2, and she now had fuel for 2.5 minutes of powered flight. Without the drop tanks and without the fuselage extension, fuel burn was only 80 seconds. Most of these flights were only 10 minutes long. But on the 3rd of October 1962, Pete Knight leveled her off at 100,000 feet and let her rip. She hit 4,520 miles per hour somewhere between Salt Lake City and Edwards Air Force Base. That airplane is currently at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. These super fast flights developed the throttleable and restartable engine that was what the Apollo lunar lander landed on the moon. It was the throttle controls of this engine right here. They were figuring it all out. This engine company also went on to develop the solid rocket boosters that were used on the space shuttle. Only 12 pilots flew the X-15, and one of them was Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was the first person to walk on the moon. The airplane on the ceiling here is a wooden mock-up that was used for wind tunnel tests while the 3 real airplanes were being built. There is another wooden mock-up at the Pima Museum in Tucson. The final surviving X-15 is at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Tragically, the 3rd aircraft was lost in a flight test accident. This is the fastest crewed airplane ever. It's just a missile. Research aircraft. Do everything by video.
Have it here out of the way while we're working on the wing.
We're in the back here, and this is the wing of the Spruce Goose, the model, and really nicely showing the engine mounts. Each wing having 4 of them. That actually explains a lot how the engines are mounted. Oh, I like it. And here's one of the. This really shows the banding of how the wood was made. Oh boy.
Well, I'll move, if you're in a video, I'll move this.
So this piece is under restoration. The last time I saw this, it had all the glass on it.
Yes, and here's the glass right here.
Oh, and there's the glass sitting right there. And this fella's letting me have a look at it. You're being so nice. Thank you so much. Oh, that could turn on. Oh, I'm actually getting pretty good
Well,
light
it's
here.
pretty limited.
Oh no, this is good. This camera is actually quite good. So this is a model that was used to make a movie, and it really shows how they built it. Oh, this is beautiful. It films a lot better without the glass on it. You can see the little building. And this isn't a model of the exact thing that Hughes Aircraft actually built it. Down in Long Beach. Oh my goodness, look at all these.
This is literally the Aviator, for example. Here they have Leonardo DiCaprio walking with another actor with a model with a wing, for example, in the background.
Oh, that was for his movie.
The movie The Aviator, yeah.
Okay.
And this is the green screen.
Yep.
And then they put it together.
Oh, I see that. Oh, wow. Sorry about that. The green screen shot and the final product. There's the two. That is pretty awesome history. And it's in here for restoration because the glues were coming apart. It needs a little bit. You can see the clamps on the top there. They're clamping some glue back. Well, thank you very much, sir. Until I put it on YouTube.
Those are the different stanchions.
Yeah, I remember all this stuff. I've got other video of this I shot a few months back.
Extremely fragile.
This is my... And there's the jig. When they made the bottom of it, they laid the keel. And I think this jig down there is the actual one that's over there. I really think it is. Oh, this is amazing. An Evergreen crop duster. And we are on top of the Cancelo Catalina. Should go out a bit. And the flight control, the whole tail, well, the back half of the tail's got fabric covering in pretty poor condition. Actually, those are inspection holes. Actually, all those holes are inspection holes. Somebody's opened it up to make sure there's no rot going on. There must be wood in there as well. This aircraft looks like it should get restored. It's big. And here's the Evergreen Air and Space Museum. A little bit of a kitchen there, a little eating area, spruce goose, and a whole bunch of cool stuff. Pretty neat little model here. Shows how Evergreen might do a load of cargo. Pretty great model. They've got some meteorites to pick up. This is a meteorite. It's super heavy. It's a chunk of metal. And we got this one over here, and it's like metal. It's awfully solid. I don't want you to steal it. I hear they got some moon rocks around here too. I hear they got some little pieces of moon rock. Oh wow! Somebody's making a bar.